Welcome to Pure HFY. My name is Stefan, and I'll be your narrator today. First of all, I ask everyone whether you have subscribed to my channel. If not, then don't worry. Please subscribe to my channel and let's move on to today's story. Let's go. I knew moving in with an alien was going to be weird, but I didn't think I'd be accused of galactic smuggling over a packet of noodles. I was halfway to the door when she slid in front of it, blocking my exit like a bouncer in lacy lingerie, which, apparently, counted as official interrogation attire on her planet. She was tall, gorgeous, and had the kind of intense gaze that made you forget your own name. "You are under room arrest until further notice," she said, like a cop reading me my rights. Room arrest? What crime did I commit, forgetting to rinse the dishes? Her eyes narrowed. Illegal possession of interstellar noodles. Class 4 smuggling offense. I stared at her, trying not to laugh. You're joking. She leaned in, her voice dropping to a husky whisper. Does this look like a joke? Her breath was warm against my ear. It didn't feel like a joke. It felt like foreplay with a side of pasta. She straightened, pulling a small glowing tablet from somewhere I really hoped was a pocket. On my planet, smuggling noodles carries severe penalties. Failure to burp after soup? Felony. Sharing noodles without a bond license? Smuggling. Eating spaghetti too seductively in public? Misdemeanor with possible deportation. I blinked at her. Who decides what's too seductive? She tilted her head. Usually the arresting officer. That's me. Okay, now I was 90% sure she was messing with me. The other 10%? Wondering how the hell she managed to make a legal threat sound like an invitation. So, you're keeping me here all night? Until I'm satisfied. She didn't even pause before adding. With your testimony. Right. Testimony. Got it. My voice cracked in a way I didn't appreciate. She took a slow step closer, her gaze locked on mine. Tell me where you hid the long, warm noodles. I raised an eyebrow. Are we still talking about pasta? She didn't answer, but her mouth twitched like she was fighting a smile. I couldn't tell if she was the world's worst liar or the world's best flirt. She began pacing the room, tail flicking. Oh yeah, did I mention she had a tail? Because she definitely used it for emphasis, like a punctuation mark that occasionally brushed my leg and made it very hard to focus. We can do this the easy way or the hard way, she said. What's the easy way? You confess. And the hard way? I search every inch of your body for concealed pasta. I swallowed. You realize how that sounds, right? She tilted her head. Is that a human double meaning? Yeah. Big one. She made a note on her tablet. Fascinating. Addendum. Human suspects often interpret physical searches as foreplay. Noted for future interrogations. I ran a hand down my face. Are you writing a thesis on me or something? Yes. It's titled Human Behavior Under Legal Duress. She met my eyes again. You're my case study. This was insane. I should have been angry, or at least annoyed. Instead, I was stuck between laughing and wondering how far she was willing to take this. Fine. What happens if I'm found guilty? 3 years in the Cuddle Mines, she said without missing a beat. I snorted. That's not a punishment, that's a subscription service. Her brow furrowed. It is forced labor. You are assigned a partner and must engage in continuous cuddling for 18 hours a day. Yeah, still sounds like a subscription service. She ignored me and stepped close again, close enough that her hips brushed mine. Last chance to tell me where you hid them. I ate them. She blinked, caught off guard. You ate the evidence? Yes. Her eyes darkened, and she muttered something in her language that sounded like either a curse or a marriage proposal. That complicates the investigation. How? Now I must determine if you consumed them illegally or with intent to distribute. I burst out laughing. You make it sound like I'm some kind of pasta kingpin. Are you denying that you've shared noodles with others before? I opened my mouth, then closed it. Okay, yes, but that was consensual noodle sharing. Everyone involved was an adult. She leaned in again, her voice dropping. On my planet, even consensual noodle sharing without a bond license is punishable. Punishable by. She smirked. Wouldn't you like to know? And I did. Against my better judgment, I very much did. For the next few minutes, she fired off rapid questions, mixing actual interrogation with random personal stuff that had nothing to do with noodles. Where were you last night at midnight? Do you always sleep shirtless? Have you ever considered interspecies dating? Do you believe in fate? Have you ever slurped in public? I was trying to keep up, but every time I answered, she inched closer, until she was practically draped over me. This feels less like an interrogation and more like speed dating, I muttered. Speed dating is illegal on my planet, she said seriously. Too many accidents involving premature bonding. I shook my head, grinning despite myself. You're unbelievable. And you're guilty until proven otherwise. She tapped her tablet, and the door behind her beeped, locked from the inside. Which means you're not going anywhere tonight. She glanced at the bed, then at me, and her smirk widened. Now, let's begin the thorough questioning. I don't know if I was about to be framed or seduced. Maybe both. But I knew one thing, this was going to be the longest night of my life. She started with Exhibit A, holding it like it was a murder weapon, except it was just a picture of me eating ramen on the couch. I was mid-slurp, hair a mess, looking like a criminal in the act of seduction. This was taken at 23:04 last night, she said, tapping the hollow image until my awkward mouth was zoomed in uncomfortably close. Notice the deliberate way you wrap the noodles around the utensil. Calculated. Provocative. Illegal. That's called eating, I said. She ignored me and pulled out Exhibit B, a small vacuum-sealed pouch with alien writing and a cartoon octopus winking. Instant galactic lo mein, she read dramatically. Not available on Earth. Not sold in this quadrant. Smuggled. I bought that from the corner store. She shook her head. Impossible. Human shops do not carry food containing xanthium powder. That ingredient is banned on 14 planets for being too addictive. She said it like she was talking about narcotics, not stir-fry seasoning. Before I could argue, she laid down Exhibit C, a signed statement from our nosy neighbor. Witness reports seeing you slurping noodles like you were trying to seduce the moonlight. That's not even a real phrase. It is in her language, she said. On her planet, it's a Class 2 offense. I pinched the bridge of my nose. You realize none of this proves anything. That is why, she said, stepping forward with a little too much sway in her hips. We move to the next phase, sensory interrogation. I should have known that meant trouble. She produced a small vial of shimmering liquid and popped it open. The smell hit instantly, sweet, spicy, and oddly warm. Truth pheromones, she said matter-of-factly. They loosen the tongue. And other things. You're telling me this is standard police work on your planet? She tilted her head. What's the human equivalent? The good cop, bad cop routine? I swallowed hard as she dipped her fingers in the oil and began rubbing it into my neck. Feels like the hot cop, hotter cop routine. She smirked, fingers gliding over my collarbone with an entirely unnecessary amount of pressure. Pheromones must be applied directly to the skin for maximum effect. Right. And massaging my shoulders is part of the process. Her hands slid lower. Do not resist. I'm not resisting, I muttered. I'm just confused if I'm being arrested or seduced. She didn't answer, but her tail flicked in a way I was starting to recognize as smug satisfaction. After a few minutes of this legal procedure, she pulled back and gave me a sly look. Now answer truthfully. Have you shared noodles with anyone in the past 6 months? I coughed. Yes. Her eyes narrowed. With who? A friend. We split takeout. Was there mouth contact? It was a fork. That is not an answer. I threw my hands up. We weren't Lady and the Tramping It. She made another note on her tablet. Subject denies direct oral exchange but displays elevated heart rate when questioned about shared meals. You're making me sound like a culinary sex offender. She raised a brow. Am I wrong? I wanted to argue, but she stepped closer again, her voice low. Section 69 of the Intergalactic Culinary Code allows me to perform a strip search for hidden ingredients. That's a real law? Yes. And you just happen to get assigned to enforce it? She tilted her head. Do you want to challenge my jurisdiction? I hesitated. Not exactly. Then remove your shirt. I sighed, pulling it over my head. She studied me like she was scanning for contraband, eyes lingering far too long to be professional. Her tail brushed my stomach. Interesting. No noodles. Yet. I stared at her. You were expecting me to have them taped to my chest? It is not unheard of, she said straight-faced. One smuggler once hid an entire lasagna between. She stopped herself, cheeks darkening. Never mind. The absurdity was killing me. Okay, what's next? You gonna pat me down for wontons? She leaned in until her lips almost grazed my ear. Only if you request it. I coughed, partly to cover the fact that my brain had completely short-circuited. This is harassment. She shrugged. Section 42. You're currently under Section 69. Much more enjoyable. Enjoyable for who? She gave me that unreadable smirk again. That depends on how cooperative you are. I shook my head, half laughing. You're insane. And you're still a suspect. She stepped back just far enough to check her tablet, then looked up. We're not done. There's still the matter of the midnight slurping. Oh, did you or did you not consume noodles alone, in the dark, without proper cultural supervision? That's not a thing. It is on my planet, she said, deadly serious. Solo slurping after midnight is seen as an intimate act meant only for bonded partners. My jaw dropped. You think I cheated on you, with food? She looked thoughtful. When you put it that way, yes. I laughed so hard I nearly fell off the bed. You need therapy. She stepped forward, her tail curling around my wrist. What I need, she said softly, is the truth. Her eyes locked on mine, and for a second, I forgot we were even talking about noodles. She was close enough that the warmth of her body was sinking into me, close enough that her voice was practically a vibration in my chest. You're ridiculous, I said, but it came out softer than I meant. And you're stalling, she replied, brushing past me just enough to make it feel deliberate. Now we move to Phase 3. I had no idea what Phase 3 was, but judging by the way she smiled, I was both terrified and very, very interested. She leaned back against the wall like a predator settling in to watch prey get tired, her tail curling lazily as she announced. Phase 3, Emotional Pressure Interrogation. The way she said it, you'd think she was about to start reading poetry in candlelight. What does that even mean? I asked. Her eyes gleamed. It means I use sensory overload to break your defenses. I raised an eyebrow. Pretty sure you've been doing that since Phase 1. Ignoring me, she dimmed the lights with a flick of her wrist. A faint hum filled the room as a scent like honeyed spice drifted in from somewhere. Then she moved toward me with slow, deliberate steps, hips swaying just enough to make my pulse climb. This is a legal tactic? I asked. Completely legitimate, she said, stopping so close our knees almost touched. The goal is to distract you until you can't help but confess. And feeding me noodles is part of that. I gestured to the bowl she'd somehow produced from nowhere. In my culture, mouth-to-mouth feeding creates vulnerability. She lifted a strand of noodles between her fingers, holding it toward my mouth like she was testing my reflexes. Open. You can't be serious. She tilted her head, eyes narrowing. Do you refuse a lawful order from an officer of the culinary court? I sighed, leaned forward, and took the noodles, trying to keep it casual, until her fingers brushed my lips just a little too slowly. Her smirk said she noticed. Interesting response time. she murmured, scribbling a note on her tablet. You're just making stuff up now. Am I? Or are you afraid of how much you're enjoying this? I rolled my eyes, but she didn't give me time to answer. Another noodle appeared. This time she leaned in far enough that I could smell the warmth of her skin. Her gaze held mine the whole time, and for a second, I forgot we were in some kind of farce trial over pasta. You're terrible at interrogations, I muttered once I'd swallowed. She tilted her head like a cat considering whether to pounce. Or maybe I'm excellent, and you just don't want to admit it. That's not how that works. It's exactly how it works. Most suspects crack under prolonged intimacy. That's what you call this. Intimacy? Interspecies proximity experiment, she corrected. The worst part was, I wasn't sure if she was lying or if her species really did treat seduction like a science project. She reached up and brushed a strand of hair off my forehead. Still resisting? Yep, she hummed thoughtfully. Then we escalate. Before I could ask what that meant, she slid into my lap, straddling me with infuriating ease. Her tail curled loosely around my waist, holding me in place. Whoa, this is your idea of interrogation. She looked completely unbothered. Your body language will reveal guilt faster than your words. Yeah, my body language is saying this is wildly inappropriate. Her lips quirked. And yet you're not pushing me away. I hated that she was right. This is entrapment. She leaned closer, her voice a whisper. Only if you get caught. There it was again, that dangerous mix of innocence and suggestion that made it impossible to tell if she was clueless or just messing with me. I tried to focus on the absurdity of the situation, but she was deliberately making that impossible, her tail tightening just enough to remind me she was in control of my movement. Her eyes locked on mine, unblinking. Tell me the truth, she murmured. You wanted those noodles more than anything, didn't you? I stopped, because her expression made it very clear that whatever I said, she'd twist it into something else. You're fishing. I'm catching, she corrected, leaning in until her forehead almost touched mine. This is ridiculous, I muttered. You keep saying that, but your pulse is spiking. That's because you're... I bit my tongue. No way was I giving her the satisfaction. Her smile deepened, and she sat back slightly. Humans are interesting. You resist verbally but betray yourself physically. Congratulations, you've cracked the human code. She ignored the sarcasm. Do you know what happens when a suspect lasts more than 3 hours in Phase 3? I'm guessing prison? She shook her head slowly. A bonding hearing. That sounds ominous. It is. She didn't elaborate, just reached for another noodle and leaned forward again. Only this time, she took one end into her mouth before offering me the other. You've got to be kidding me. It's called a unity strand, she said, voice smooth. Breaking it is bad luck. This is just Lady and the Tramp with extra steps. Lady and the what? Never mind. I should have pulled back, should have refused outright, but instead, I leaned in until the strand was taut between us. She didn't break eye contact the entire time, chewing slowly, inch by inch, until there was barely anything left. I felt her breath mix with mine and then... the noodle broke. She sat back with a small, satisfied noise. Partial unity. Very telling. About what? That you're almost ready to confess. Or that you're wasting both our time. Time is irrelevant. Results matter. I groaned. You are the most frustrating person I've ever met. And yet, she said softly, you're still here. I didn't have an answer for that, because technically, she was right. I could have made a break for the window, but something told me I wouldn't get far. Something else told me I didn't really want to. She slid off my lap, pacing again, tail swishing. We will pause for 10 minutes. Pheromones need time to circulate. I laughed. You're making this up as you go, aren't you? She turned just enough for me to see her smirk. Maybe. But you're still going to crack before sunrise. And for the first time all night, I wasn't sure if that was a threat or a promise.